So let's jump in. What is a personal brand for somebody who's never heard that before?
Whether you're looking for a job, promotion within your existing organization, you're trying to pitch a business to anyone, any kind of growth will eventually hinge on how they see you. We were just talking to a VC who actually invests in fairly mature companies. When we asked him, well, who do you bet on or how do you decide on a company? He says, well, most of these companies are mature, so we do have data. But I would say 85% of my decision is based on the founder. What does that tell you? That keep that agenda in mind and make sure that that doesn't get diluted in the service of this race to becoming an influencer.
I get the point about production value. If you can afford it, go for it.
Go for it. Because when this comes out, we'll see what it would have looked like if I was just sitting in my desk at home versus something that is obviously highly produced and, looks very elegant. It adds to the brand that you're building.
Sure.
It shows that polish and that finesse and that level of maturity. Every successful company is a result of two great brands, the founder's brand and the company's brand. And you can take any company on this planet. If you look at Google, you talk about Apple, you talk about Microsoft, you talk about Tesla. All of these have a strong founder and a strong company brand.
Isha, it is so lovely to see you here in
It
Mumbai.
is so lovely to see you,
Yes,
Shashank.
we've known each other for a couple of decades now.
18 years.
Right. And we're sitting down in this format for the first time. We've spoken
Philosophy, business,
yes,
life. Go ahead.
But I think we're going to try to keep this conversation as close to your expertise, which I think is personal branding, as possible.
Yep.
We can take a few tangents here and there, which is fine, but we're going to talk about personal branding because I think the world needs to hear what you have to say. Just for an introduction, Isha is a Bitsian. I've known, like you said, Isha for 18 years. She's also the co-founder and the operator of Yellow Pebble, which is a state-of-the-art marketing and branding agency based out of New York. You've worked with some illustrious brands across industry, but most significantly in tech. You worked with the likes of Google and Microsoft. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but you've worked with the who's who of the tech industry, primarily focused on growing the brand aspect of tech companies, because that's where you found your calling. You are an engineer turned marketeer, so you understand with both sides of that. You relate to both sides of that coin, and you kind of understand that a lot of techies are just trying to get their message out, but they're not doing a very good job of it. So let's jump in. What is a personal brand for somebody who's never heard that before? How would you parlay it into the context of a company?
Well, not in the context of a company, but a personal brand is fundamentally, authentically you, yourself, the way you're presenting it to the world. If you think about how people are perceived or how we talk to the world, it always creates these little impressions, right? You're constantly talking. You're looking at me. I'm sure the people in the studio have an opinion of me. Al Reese and Jack Trout wrote this entire book on positioning. It's written in the context of a company. What is positioning is, how do you establish how the world sees you? And I think as people, we need to start building that persona, building that personality, that the world sees you the way you want to be seen. That's personal brand in like the most simplest and most fundamental of terms. It's not anything you're not, but it is making sure that whatever you are, the world sees you exactly as that.
So let me try to break that down, what you just said. So the first component is the world sees you for who you really are, for your authentic self, right? That's part one. Two, you didn't say it as such, but what I'm taking away is most of the world sees you. So you maximize the circle of how many people get to see you, right? Which is the second part of the personal branding. And the third part of the branding, again, you didn't say this, but I'm taking this away from what you sort of mentioned, is how do you guide that towards how you want to be seen and what the ultimate business, perhaps, or individual objective is of that personal brand, right? So those are the three components: is how close to you are to your authentic self, to you who you really are, and what makes you unique, and what makes me want to spend 2 hours talking to you, or just what makes me want to work with you or do business with you. That's who you really are.
Yeah.
The second part of it is maximize that to as many people and as broadcast that as much as possible. And the third part that I took away from it was how does that relate to what you want them to do or what they want you to do? How does that relate to a sort of an objective? Is that fair?
Absolutely. And what you're touching on there is, why do I need a personal brand? Right?
Yeah.
So right now, if I were to Google Shashank Misra, or even me to some extent, we're going to find a lot of peppered content that kind of has like a speech you might have given in Amsterdam, or something that you worked on. You were a part of a multi-million-dollar exit. Maybe there's a little excerpt about that.
Sure.
But how do you bring it all into one story? Like, I'm just seeing glimpses of who Shashank is. Why do I need to see you as one whole person? For a few different reasons.
Okay.
So one is so that you see me as a one full person.
Yeah.
That's just the fundamental need
Because people
to
do
exist.
business with people.
With people. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the first reason. The second is whether you are intentionally or unintentionally, you do have a personal brand. You just know
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
So how do you take charge of that narrative so that the world sees you the way you want them to see you? And the third thing is whether you're looking for a job, a new job, a promotion within your existing organization, you're trying to pitch a business to anyone, any kind of growth will eventually taper, like it will hinge on how they see you, not necessarily all the other ancillary things. Obviously, all those things matter. We were just talking to a VC who actually invests in fairly mature companies. He's a Series ABC investor. And this afternoon, and when we asked him, well, who do you bet on or how do you decide on a company? He says, well, most of these companies are mature, so we do have data that we look into, which is revenue, EBITDA, whatever. But I would say 85% of my decision is based on the founder, even at that stage.
Wow.
What does that tell you? That tells you who you are and how you present
perceived.
yourself matters to the world. So that's fundamentally it. In the most basic of terms, how many people see you, I actually don't think that's as important as how many people that matter to you see you.
Sure.
So that circle of influence, for example, I have a client that we do personal branding with. He is very specific. I think he's already a fairly seasoned senior leader, and anything he posts, he will get good engagement. So, okay, why do you need me? You need me because he wants to get engagement from the
Right.
20 executives. It's a very, very small pool. But those 20 executives that matter need to see me for who I am, need to see me as a thought leader, which I am. I'm just not talking about it enough or in the right context. Let's make that happen. That's the idea. It's not, for him, it's not the goal of how many followers I'm getting, how many engagements I'm getting. Are these 20 people somewhere looking at me? And if so, then I'm in the right pool. I'm talking to the right people. I'm positioning myself for success. And it's not selfish for him. In his case, he has a company with 700 people that is relying on his success to be their success, right? So, and a bunch of investors and a lot of other obvious stakeholders. So that's the other way of like, why do you position yourself? How do you position yourself? It's about who you want to see you as well. So that circle, but a relevance circle.
Makes sense. But I mean, you and I both are engineers, right? And we tend to rationalize everything with numbers, right? And this is where we've had a lot of discussions to the point where how does the ROI on branding work, right? That's, I'm sure, something you get all the time. And I think that to some extent there is that number of followers, number of impressions, and that's an indication. It's directionally right.
Yes.
But you like you said, it has to be from the right people. So if I have 5 million followers, but none of them are ever going to buy from me, and if my goal is to, so that people buy from me, then I'm not doing a very good job.
Yeah.
And if I have just 50 followers, but all of them repeatedly buy from me, then I'm doing a fantastic job, because that's really, what. So what I'm hearing from you is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing from you is prioritize the right metrics, keeping those 3 things in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, if you do any kind of personal brand or any kind of work, you will have what I call hygiene metrics.
Sure.
those hygiene metrics need to be met. You need to see some sort of return on investment in those spaces. So your engagement rate, your click-through rate on articles that you're putting out there, the impressions you're getting, the reach you're getting, all of that is important. Absolutely. But what I don't want is don't make that the agenda. Like, yes, that trajectory should be in the right direction, regardless of what's happening. But at the end of the day, focus on what matters most. And in this person's case, it is these 20 stakeholders. In your case, it might be getting invited to the right circles to have conversations with like-minded people or whatever it is. Keep that agenda in mind and make sure that that doesn't get diluted in the service of this race to becoming an influencer or becoming the most famous person in XYZ field. I sometimes talk about this in other ways too. We talk about authenticity versus relatability or positioning yourself the right way. And I always say this to my founders. So the founder I was just talking to you about, the CEO of the 700-person company, it's a nerd. And so sometimes when he's telling me something, we have sessions, almost like a therapy, honestly, like where he talks about things, just stream of consciousness, talk about whatever's on your mind. And it's a lovely, like for me, it's an experience that gives me human insight into who these people are. So I learn a lot from talking to these super successful, entrepreneurs and executives. But when he was talking, he kind of paused for a second and he said, "Oh, this is getting too geeky. I don't think this will work." So, why? Listen, I will make the stories work for you, but I want the geek to come out. I want the story to come out in the way it is, which is, let it flow. Let people see the nerdy side of you. Let them know that you think about first principles thinking when you're talking about Gen AI and, supply chain management or whatever it is. So I don't think that's wrong at all. Like, let's go nerd out a little bit and see where the pieces fall. Like, there's nothing wrong in being authentically you and letting people come to you. Let your tribe find you for who you are, rather than position yourself too much about. The hope is you've built a career or a profession in something you actually care about. So you wouldn't have to lie.
Fake it. Yeah.
And within that, if you carve a niche as the nerdy entrepreneur, the entrepreneur that thinks about all these hyper-technical terms, be it. Find the people who will gravitate to that.
So I think that there's more to it than that, though. So I don't know if you've heard of this company called lynda.com that was acquired by LinkedIn Learning.
Yes.
And famously, their logo used to be a caricature of the founder herself with her very, with her glasses that would kind of stand out, right? And I see this now where I see influencers sign off their videos or intro their videos a certain way. They'll have a phrase that they'll repeat and they're kind of trying to doubling down. So it's not inauthentic. But they've found ways, they found hooks, they found these big sunglasses that they will wear to their content. They've found these huge glasses, they'll wear a red cap, they'll wear a pink suit, they'll do, things like that. And they want them to be known by those things, right? Yeah. So it's not inauthentic. It's not who they are. I mean, they're not a dude who always wears pink suits or yellow caps for that matter, right? But they do it so that when somebody sees them, they kind of instantly go, "Oh, you're the dude that wears the pink suit," right? That sort of thing.
Yes. So think about like the name we've chosen for our company, Yellow Pebble. Mm-hmm. The idea was very simple. Pebble means you don't need to be big to be making big impact. Mm-hmm. And yellow is a color that's not ignorable. To me, when these founders or influencers pick certain triggers, it's just to invoke that memory over and over again. Neuro-linguistic programming, obviously, sure. NLP. To me, that is, in the most fundamental sense, an execution of NLP where every single time you see something that is yellow. For example, I have people sometimes they'll just send me like pictures of yellow pebbles on the beaches. Like they'll go to a beach and it's like, "Hey, I found a yellow pebble." And I like the idea that they always see these little things that trigger this memory of me and the company that we're building. And I don't think there's anything inauthentic about it. I think that's actually part of building a personal brand. Having a story, having certain triggers, having certain hooks, For me, it's my big hair, big curly hair that pretty much never wants to stay put. And I've tried straightening it. I've tried a lot of things with it. I'm just like leaning into the chaos in many ways. But it's become my thing. Like I once went on a call where I had like oiled my hair that day. So I was kind of like, I had like a very,
Straight hair look.
chapta look, they call it in Hindi. And the guy says, you don't look like the person I've seen. I'm like, wait. And I just like took my hair out and waved it around. Like, do I look like that now? It's like, yeah, I'm the exact same person. So, that's my personality already. It's kind of been established. Wild-haired brown girl.
Marketing girl.
From India. Yeah. With a confusing Indian, British, American accent, apparently. So.
Well, speaking of accents, is something I struggle with personally, right? Because I've noticed that there's almost a subconscious behavior in me that I start to emulate and not exactly mimic, but start to tend towards the accent of the person I'm speaking to. So I'm speaking to you now. I have a slight tinge of an American accent. I can, if I speak to somebody who's got a thick Indian accent, it'll, I might start to tend towards there. And I've had instances of that. So for me, this has been like a philosophical debate in my mind between authenticity and relatability that we keep coming back to, right? Is how much do I lean into making myself more impactful? So we talked about off-air, how much of an impact would I create? Would I be clearer to understand if I spoke like you? Perhaps, which is subconsciously why I do it, right? And does that make it inauthentic? Would you, if you caught me with a different accent, not relate to me? Like somebody in your example didn't relate to you, but if you had your hair sort of all tied up and not the usual way you keep it, right? So, I mean, there's that aspect of it that I struggle with sometimes, and almost subconsciously, kind of like. So, I think what I'm hearing from you is pick your lane, define who you are. As long as that's agreeable to you, stay consistent.
Yes, absolutely. And also, Shashank, to your point, I think what is authentic to you is to make the other person comfortable. You're a classical sales guy. Let's not forget your own roots. Yeah. And what you try to do is your job has always been to make the other person feel like, I'm one of you. I understand you. I get you. And if that is achieved by the accent, you employ the accent. I don't think it's inauthentic at all. I think it's actually the most authentic thing about you. It's fundamentally it is Shashank is the guy who makes everybody feel comfortable. And if that comes through changing up his accent a little bit, talking too much sometimes so that the other person who's an introvert doesn't feel the pressure to talk, you do what it takes to...
Works the other way sometimes, but okay.
Or whatever, Yeah. Okay, obviously.
Yeah. But listen, I didn't mean for this to be a psychoanalysis session on Shashank.
I'm just saying,
but
you're right.
I appreciate the wisdom.
But you're right. So I do think, I wrote a blog on this many, many years ago, probably in the first year of Yellow Pebble. It was in the context of being a business, not necessarily in personal brand, but I believe in it, and everything cascades from person to company and company back to person. But I wrote about authenticity as the fundamental pillar for everything. People think of marketing as, it's fake, it's all lies. No, marketing is positioning what is most authentic and real, communicating it in a way that your customers understand it, see the value in it, and grasp at the 2 or 3 things that are most important for them. That's what marketing does for you. It creates this recurrence of messaging. It creates this resonance in the customer's mind to who you are in various forms, whether it's through LinkedIn marketing, whether it's through the emails you're sending. What we need to remember is all of this is grounded in the reality of who you are as a business. We don't necessarily need to, position ourselves as something we're not. I would rather alienate 1,000 followers and have 100 fans than be like a neutral nobody that everybody kind of sort of likes.
Sure.
So build a fan base and be okay to, let somebody not not like your point of view, but have a point of view as a company. Yeah.
So let's go into the building blocks of what it takes to do that, right? And obviously, you're a personal branding expert, and anybody who's listening wants to come to you is more than welcome to come to you. But how do you start? If you have no idea, if you've got 0 followers and 0 social existence, let's say, I don't know if it's possible to do that, but let's say you're the types that doesn't have too much of an idea. Where would you start?
Okay.
And at what point of time would I reach out to you where you've done enough on your own, and now I reach out to Isha and Yellow Pebble to help me out?
You can reach out to us at any point in that journey, to be honest, because I enjoy working with people who actually don't know, who are in that like phase of self-discovery. But where you start is on 3 questions. And these 3 questions are very, very simple. Actually, I'm going to come to a second. So it's a 2-part answer. The first is the questions you ask. So the question is, who am I and what matters most to me? And it's not a philosophical question. It breaks down into 3 things. One is, what matters to me professionally? What matters to me in my passions, meaning the hobbies or the things that I enjoy doing? And what matters to me in terms of give back, in terms of the community that I'm hopefully trying to build or reach out to, right? Like, I don't want to put out content that doesn't add value to other people's lives.
Sure.
So what do I like professionally? Hobbies. And what do I want to give back to the world with whatever I'm generating? These 3 components need to be there in that question of who am I? The second part is, who am I talking to? So now the second piece, which kind of leans into that community give back piece, is who is the audience that I want to tap and target and have them listen to me for whatever reason that is. And maybe that's a 4th question, but that's the second part. And the third is there anybody who's already doing this that I can learn from, that I want to differentiate from? So it's more like, what is the environment that I'm trying to enter? Who's the customer audience that I'm trying to talk to? And who am I fundamentally? When you triangulate these 3 things, you'll come up with some pillars, which I call the personal brand pillars. And that will give you a content. So for example, my personal brand hinges on 3 things. I care a lot about marketing. So you will hear a lot of marketing gyan in my things. I care a lot about spirituality, and sometimes you'll see that philosophical side come out in some of my stream of consciousness writings. And the third thing I care about is a dual experience, immigrant woman in America, and kind of what we do with that status where you kind of feel in a way disadvantaged in 2 ways. You're a woman of color and you don't speak the language. You know what I mean. Exactly. You don't speak American English, and that kind of puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. Like, what can you do to grow as a woman in America? Like, those are the 3 broad pillars. And all my content, if you go back and parse through it, somewhere talks about one of these 3 in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. I think, and I kind of relate to, by the way, I think you speak perfectly a good American English. And I was told by a lot of my American friends that I have better grammatical skills than many of them that speak English as a first language.
We read.
I think what you're trying to say is that you don't have the sort of the association, the roots, that somebody growing up and being born in America would, and that sort of makes a huge difference. And what are the challenges? What are the obstacles that creates, and how do you overcome them? And so you're passionate about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a very good community of women from IIM, which is one of my alma mater. And when we sit somewhere in Bryant Park and just like eat ice cream and chat, it is lovely to have like that shared experience of what are we doing right now in our life to kind of get ahead, succeed in different ways. And of course, they talk about everything, but I do think there is a shared experience of being not just an immigrant in America, but also an immigrant woman in America. Like I definitely think I am very passionate about it, and I almost feel like sometimes as Indian women we're taught to be a little more docile, a little more the woke word demure, like we're taught Gen Z word demure, and sometimes it's hard for us to kind of break out of that and be assertive without being perceived as aggressive. and there's a lot of other like fine tune, like there's like very very small nuances to that world that I personally feel are relevant. Well, anyway, so those are the topics I care about.
But do you think that, I mean, I can certainly observe that you're egregious, affable, you're also extrovert, if I may make that. Do you think it's harder for somebody who's an introvert to sort of make that leap, to expose themselves to that vulnerability, putting themselves out there? I know a lot of introverts that struggle with that.
Yes.
And also just getting into the root of, you need a lot of introspection to really know who you are, right? And introverts, even if they know, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to share that with other people, they don't want to sort of bring that out in the open. Do you think that it poses a challenge to introverts? And could I still have a personal brand if I'm an introvert?
Absolutely. I think people mistake that personal brand is talking about me. What introverts don't like is talking about themselves. But I think what introverts can do, and do very well actually, some of the best writers are introverts. So yes, maybe video is not your format. Maybe, bragging about the latest achievement is not your format. But maybe it is writing an article about a topic that you care about deeply. And there's nothing wrong with that. So you can pick things that matter to you and have just an objective, or even if it's subjective, you can write things in third party voice, and still bring out ideas to the world. And that's the easiest way. And to some extent, I actually know introverts who do this very well. They just are masters of written words. And the written word is how they express themselves and how they put their content out in the world and continue to grow.
But I'm going to push back on that a little bit, right?
Go ahead.
We both know that the modality of content is changing. I mean, SEO was all the rage, and we were trying to optimize the number of keywords we could fit into our articles, 10 years back. And now the modality is changing, and we're talking about video content because people like to watch and not read.
Yep.
Right? I'm sure there's still an audience. I'm sure there's still the number of books being published every year hasn't massively declined, or maybe somebody could fact check me on that. But there's still plenty of readers around the world.
Right.
But do you not think that the modality of content is changing materially to the point that I don't like to do video isn't an option?
No, I don't think that's actually true.
Okay.
This is where yes, video is king. There's no doubts about it. We're sitting here in the studio recording partially because we know video is king.
Sure.
Absolutely. Where I do think there is still an opportunity, Substack, for example. It's a growing platform. Medium is a growing platform. Thank you. I was thinking about good job. Medium is a growing platform. All of these platforms are evidence that long form content, I'm not even saying bite-sized content, long form written content is still being consumed by voracious readers. And Substack has been like one of those channels that has really tapped into building a fan base for content that you care about. And a lot of Substack writers, I imagine, again, no data to support this, a lot of them might be people who don't actually want to be on video or want to expose themselves in other formats and choose to write instead.
I actually do have a couple of people that I follow and that primarily do written content, and I personally do love their excerpts and their kind of takes on life and in my case, in some cases, investing and some of the other aspects that I'm passionate about. So I do consume some of my content in written format, but it's interesting to get your perspective on that. But speaking of this nice studio that we're sitting in, do you think that production value is, we talk about done is better than good. And if you're waiting for the perfect studio and the perfect camera and the perfect microphone and the perfect everything to get started on creating your first video, then you're making a mistake. You know, we agree on that. Just pull out your iPhone and hit record and just go. Just start,
Absolutely.
right? And there is value to doing it consistently. So I would value consistency both in format and in frequency over production value. But how much of a difference does production value, or somebody going through Yellow Pebble to draft their personal brand, how much of a difference does that make? Because we're just being bombarded with so much content that the ones that have high production value stand out.
They do. And you're absolutely right. Begin where you can begin. If you look at the most famous example is Mr. Beast, and some of his early videos. Actually went back and looked at his like first 30 videos, and I couldn't get through them because I've just seen the best of what he can produce today.
Sure.
But they are amazing testament to what resilience can do for you.
It's the same with MKBHD as well. I've seen a few of his initial videos, and I mean, he was just a kid, and he was just had like this crappy old webcam.
Yeah.
I think he was doing it on a webcam, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I get that.
I get it. So do what you can afford to do, and what's most accessible to you. So that's the fundamental stakes. Now, where does the difference come in? Yes, if you do have the resources, it does help. Here's the thing. I can have a great personality, but I might not be the best with words, or I don't need to have all those aspects of my life in order to be a great leader or a great entrepreneur or a great executive. So no, it's as simple as when I have a company, I know these are my 3 weaknesses. I'm going to get tools to help me get there. So to me, getting an agency or a partner that can understand you and actually give you, in your tone of voice, words that you've thought, but you're just not articulating them right, and regurgitates it back to you and builds something that starts being meaningful, it's highly valuable. So if you have the resources and you don't have the time and you have a busy schedule, but you still want to invest in building this whole picture of who you are, it's absolutely imperative to have a partner that can kind of be with you in that journey and kind of hold your hand and get you to a point where you may not need them, or continue to do that in the background where you don't even need to explain it to, right? You don't have to explain to me exactly what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And that's a really, it's a relief. So that's the first. The second is production value. I absolutely think if you have the resources and the means, and I'm so happy we're sitting in a studio in Mumbai, and this was highly accessible, right?
Yeah,
like this is not difficult for people to do. And this, guys, I don't know. Somebody wants to plug what studio this is.
This is credit to Shrikant behind the camera.
Shrikant and
yeah. But I get the point about production value. If you can afford it, go for it.
Go for it, because it does drive impact. I think when this comes out, we'll see what it would have looked like if I was just sitting in my desk at home and doing this like webinar recording on my own, versus something that is obviously highly produced and looks very elegant. It adds to the brand that you're building.
Sure.
It shows that polish and that finesse and that level of maturity. So,
but I think what I take away from what you said is push hard. Start. Just start. And push hard until you're not able to get any further without improving the production value.
Yeah.
And then you improve, then you spend on an agency, you improve the production value. So as far as you can get,
by yourself.
Figure it out. And this is the same thing. It's the same advice that I give to entrepreneurs is, do you need, if you're starting a company, do you need the most expensive MacBook out there to start writing code? No, just get a crappy old MacBook Pro from like 2014 or something and just start. Just start. And there'll be a time that you'll hit the limit of what that poor old 2014 MacBook Pro can do, and then you kind of you hopefully made some progress.
Exactly.
And then you kind of I think that makes sense. There's another analogy that comes to mind, which is that of I'm trying to lose weight, and the basics of losing weight is very simple. There's a calorie in, calorie out concept. Everybody knows that. You got to eat the right amount and eat the right food, and you've got to work out.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Eat less, exercise more.
Eat less, exercise more.
Yeah.
This 4 words can summarize anybody who's trying to be more health conscious, trying to lose weight, right? Yeah. Very simple. But does it not help to have a coach, a fitness expert, a gym buddy? I mean, all of those things help. So just get started. First, get started. And second, if you need motivation, if you need help, if you need a hand, need a coach, need a trainer, I mean, you have all of those things available. And I think it's the same thing that you're saying for so the analogy is you are perhaps the coach, the trainer, the friend with a helping hand, all of those things when it comes to personal branding as they might be for weight loss. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I'm glad I'm going to use that. I've not thought of it like that, but that's exactly what it is. These are all tools to help you succeed, as long as you have the motivation. But start where you can start. Like, this is, if it helps, I might actually just put up like a questionnaire for building your personal brand, just like that people can download from yellowpebble.co. But I think it might be a good starting point for people to just like, what are my motivations for? Because I do when I start any session, I have like a 90-minute onboarding session where I just like literally peer into the
Peel the layers of the onion.
soul of that of the client and try to understand like what are your motivations. Like I go back to that childhood sometimes if I feel the need to, and it really helps us understand their thoughts and motivations and insights, and helps us almost like get into their skin when we're writing or producing stuff for them.
No matter, I was getting those psychoanalysis vibes from you, Dr. Freud.
I actually, so sometimes I feel like am I a therapist? But all of this is in service of positioning you right for your audiences. And then I do want to touch on something, Shashank. I don't know if you had it on your
No, please.
thoughts,
go for it.
but a lot of people think of personal brand as like, let me do PR. Let me get like press releases. Let me be on this Forbes article as a expert. All of that is good. But just know that when we go to that stature, you have to build this, it's called, you can't go to the pinnacle without making the journey. So start by building your personal brand on at least LinkedIn, if not multiple platforms. If you want, build your own personal website, which is like a single spot where people can find you. And these are like tactical things I'm saying, but I just want to address it because it sometimes sounds so philosophical and abstract, but fundamentally you need to have a LinkedIn page that is live and active and truthfully reflects who you are. And it should not say experienced marketer with 10 years in CPG industry no, that's not who you are. You are so much more than that. Make sure that shows up. And then kind of go into building ideally a hub that seats all the content you ever created. It's your one source of truth for people to find out more about you. And that becomes what, like, when I search Shashank Misra, that's the page that should show up. And that's like my complete picture of who Shashank is. And then third is where you go into these paid partnerships or placing yourselves in articles and kind of being more present on third-party interfaces. Hopefully, these opportunities will come to you if you've done the first two things right. But a lot of times when I talk about personal brand, people are like, oh, you will do PR for me? No. Build the foundations first.
So we're going to double click on the tactical aspects of this in a second, but I think this is an important point that you brought up, and I've seen this personally when do you see big actors, like let's say I'll take the Indian Bollywood context. When do you see Shah Rukh Khan on your screen when he has a movie coming out?
Yeah.
So there is a transactional aspect of PR, but personal brand stays. It's not it's evergreen. It's not transactional. So what I'm really hearing you say is, if you have a big investor pitch coming up, that's not the time to start thinking about personal brand. If you have a big product launch coming up, that's not the time to think about. It's something that you have to just think about all the time. It's something that goes beyond these events. And sure, you might do increased effort and increased investments at these key junctures or key milestones in your professional or personal life, but your personal brand stays with you and should be around even when there is no big sort of event in the offing. Am I saying that correctly?
Absolutely. You said it well. Personal brand is evergreen and PR efforts are transactional. Little blips on that journey.
And hopefully they all tie in together.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know if I have any other thoughts, but go ahead.
No, I was going to sort of start to double click on those tactical bits, because I think you've talked about you've given us a little bit of a starting point. Let's go deeper into that. So, like you said, pick your modality, pick your audience, pick who you are, and stay true to that. Build a starting point where people can kind of start. So it's a bit like, here's my starting point, here's my website. And now, depending on why you're coming here, because I am a person of I love investing. I love technology. I love cricket and maybe like 5 other things. So depending on which one you want to talk to me about, here are the 5 places you can go. So that's a launch pad of sorts that you
Right.
talked about, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to have a clean, as a very basics. I mean, we're starting with a clean LinkedIn look, which represents who I truly am. I have none of those things, by the way, but we'll get to that on a different date.
Let's do it.
A clean LinkedIn and a good launch pad for people to start off. And then what else would you say people do at the bare minimum level?
So let's talk about LinkedIn itself. What
Sure.
should you have? A good profile picture, a good headline. And what does a good headline contain? A good headline contains 3 things. One is what you do. So, yes, a title, a company, something of that sort. What you're passionate about. And it might have some sort of a historical references. So, for example, if I were to craft a profile for Shashank, he is advisor.
I think we should stop with the
investor.
Shashank examples because I feel like I've been thrown under the scanner.
All right, fine. So if
And
I
as much as I love
no,
the
so
attention
like
that you're
let's
bringing
let's
to me,
do me. Let's do me.
Sure, let's do that.
So if you look at me and my profile, it would first of all say co-founder and CEO of Yellow Pebble. The second thing would talk about passionate about transforming businesses into brands. Some sort of version of that I think I've written. And the third I put in is ex Nestle and Henkel. These are points to. It's a trust economy. You need to have some credibility.
Sure.
And then within my schools, one of the first schools I list is BITS Pilani because that's where most of my network lies. And even though I have like certificates from Harvard and I've done IIMK, BITS is the school I want to be recognized by. So I've structured my profile already in like the first snapshot you get of it to be like, oh, I think this girl might be worth something. Like maybe it's a value to talk to her. You know, there's no harm in talking to her. Something of that sort, right?
Sure.
The second thing is the bio you write. And the bio does not need to be 3 pages long. It also does not need to talk about experienced professional with all of these things. I think fundamentally the bio should be in first person voice. Me. It is me. It's my profile. I'm writing it.
There was this big trend of people writing in
third person.
Yes.
What a terrible trend. I have never written in third person. It's just, what a terrible way to write about you. It's just, you are the person building this profile.
Sure.
Obviously. Write in first person voice. Be organic in what you write. You can write about different things. Like how you structure that paragraph is up to you. But it should not be just about, keywords or buzzwords that people in your industry want to hear.
Yeah, I think this is the learning that we've all had in the last few years. Is it's what gets you ranked up and crawled upon by the crawlers of all the famous search engines. There isn't too many of them.
Yeah.
Isn't necessarily what helps you build a famous brand, because it's just what is readable by a crawler is not how humans like to read the content.
Exactly. And Gen AI is changing that a little bit. So hopefully we'll go towards a more coherent sentence format that makes sense. But that's fundamentally it, right? So writing that bio is the second thing. And then the third thing is having very clear professional markers. While you don't need to go into details of big things that you've done in each job, the fact that you have nothing written for any of the jobs that you've done is also
not a great sign.
Yeah, not a great sign. So have some little benchmarks. At least write one cool. The way I think about it is like one cool thing I did when I was in that job, or one thing that was such a stellar thing that it's a good memory. Like I got this excellence award and I was flown to Germany. I think that was a good thing. Let's write about that. Like we don't have to write about, people know what a brand manager does. I don't need to write 10 sentences that just talk about what a brand manager does. I need to talk 2 sentences that are very unique to my experience as a brand manager, right? So that's kind of how you go into building out the rest of that profile. And obviously, like in my experience, people have been very kind in giving us testimonials, personally as well as a company. Reach out to your old managers, your old colleagues, and say like, hey, write a little thing about me. If you liked me, write a little thing about me, and it helps. Those testimonials, those little things, actually help people believe in who you are. So that's the tactical LinkedIn landing page. The website is purely optional. Website comes in handy especially when you are an entrepreneur or when you have some other personal things that you want to do. For example, I like talking about personal branding. Yellow Pebble is obviously way more than that. We are a company that does B2B tech marketing. And as an engineer slash marketer, as you said, I try to bring those worlds together and in a coherent manner communicate what large and small companies do when it comes to in the realm of technology. But I personally like personal brands. So in my website, I have a little consultation which is about let's talk about your personal brand. And I like working with very early stage startups who can't afford an agency like ours. So I have another consultation for early stage startups. If you want to talk about how to position your brand or whatever, book 30 minutes with me and I'll give you yeah, these are things that I want to do personally, and those are the two things that exist on my website. In addition to, there's a page that talks about all the articles I've written, all the things I've been published in, all of my. It links to my YouTube, so you can see my YouTube videos where I've kind of given speeches. Hopefully, if this comes on YouTube, I'll add this to that list as well. So the personal brand website is purely, truthfully, if you want to do something beyond, but the LinkedIn page, if it's a hygienic, good, high quality page, by itself should do that job for you.
But also, I mean, this is mostly for B2B companies. I think if you take the B2C lens, then the Instagrams and the TikToks and the Facebooks of the world start to come into play.
Yes.
Depending on who your target market is, it could be, you might want to create TikTok videos. Obviously, sitting here in India, TikTok's still banned in India.
Instagram Reels.
Well, YouTube Shorts, Snapchat, etc. I mean,
Yep.
whatever's, yeah. So, okay, that makes sense. And I guess great pointers for somebody who's just looking to get started, just to take that first step. And the just learning and talking to your audience will teach you a lot. So just keeping an open ear. At least I've found, but people will be willing to give you feedback if you're open to hearing it, right?
Yeah.
When the pupil is ready, the
Master
appears, right? So if you're open to getting that feedback, people will give it to you, and you seek that feedback. You improve 1% with every post, with every week or whatever, and you try to get better and better and better and better in service of the audience that you're building up, right?
Yeah. And I do want to talk about something that we missed when I was talking about why should you build a personal brand. And I do have like a bias of B2B tech land, so I guess we'll live with it. But if you are a founder that's building a technology company, especially if you're sitting in India or other parts of the world, people have a very limited lens through which they can see you. When you do any kind of outreach, and founder-led sales are a big way that a lot of these startups generate business.
Sure.
There's 3 lenses that they can get an idea about who you are or who the company is. I'm going to go outside in. Your company's website, company's LinkedIn, and finally, you. So if your profile is not on point, if you are not you're not walking the talk and you're not showcasing exactly the same expertise that you're pushing onto these clients,
or investors.
Or investors, it's a dissonance.
Yes.
I'm likely to not believe you for what you're saying. So that's the other fundamental reason why you need to build a personal brand, especially if you're a founder.
This consistency, just the consistency of I mean, because
Yes.
inconsistency causes
Consistency
dissonance.
across all the different facets of you as well as your company. I wrote this article about how every successful company is a result of 2 great brands, the founder's brand and the company's brand. And you can take any company on this planet. If you look at Google, the founders of Google are as famous as Google. If you talk about Apple, if you talk about Microsoft, you talk about Tesla, famous, infamous, however you want to place it, all of these have a strong founder and a strong company brand. Both of them together have come to build enormous successful empires. And that's my 2 cents.
So that's interesting. I also I was thinking about something as you were talking. Is I've got this very dear friend who is a chemical manufacturer locally here in Mumbai. It's a sizable company. They do. I mean, let's say a few tens of millions in revenue every month. So But when I've talked to him about marketing and brand, he says I'm in a commodity business, right? I don't really need
Fair.
marketing, and my industry and subjects too dry anyway. So I've heard him use these words, right? Do you think that there is such a thing as my industry is too dry? I mean, you talk about marketing, and it's a fascinating subject. But if I have to talk about, pick a chemical. If I have to talk about that, maybe I'll lose you in the first 15 seconds. So how do I? I mean, I can talk about I'm making like high quality. I can talk about like pricing, but ultimately it's a dry subject, and my audience is really not interested. So, have you ever encountered something? I know you primarily focus on B2B tech. But so
even
this
tech
is a
is
little
sometimes
left field.
boring.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
of
Yeah.
course. And people recognize it. A lot of times
Well, tech itself can be boring, but the end that it serves is exciting.
is exciting.
So I guess
Exactly.
that's the answer to the question that we were asking.
So I don't know enough about the chemical company. I can't make a judgment call, but I'm sure we can find something that's a little more exciting. But to your point, sometimes in commodities business, it's even harder to differentiate.
Yeah.
So I actually feel like maybe branding and marketing is even more important to elevate yourself from something that's just like a price war situation. Like, are you always like the cheapest vendor is the person I go to, or I go to you for XYZ reasons because that's how you've differentiated or positioned yourself? Yeah.
I think that's a fair point. I think that's exactly right. Is
'Cause that's
if
how
all
they're
you're fighting is a
thinking.
price war, then then the marketing is not going to help you. The branding is not going to help you. But maybe marketing is the way out of that price war. If you can build a brand that, hey, call me day or night, any day, 365 days a year, 366 in a leap year. Call me
Yeah.
anytime, and I'll always pick up your phone. And that's who I am as a
That's
brand.
who you are. That's what you pivot on. And Shashank, to your the example you've given, you make tens of millions in a month. Maybe you don't have an incentive to make more. But would you like that in that tens of millions top line, your bottom line goes up? The only way to bring that bottom line up is by putting some sort of a differentiation, making sure that people are willing to not bottom line.
Top line, but we
the
get the
top
idea.
line up. You can still grow the top line and increase profitability. That's
Yes.
my point. Increase the gap between the bottom line and the top line. I was like, I didn't articulate that well. Okay.
Pat, yes, but
Yes.
we get the idea.
So the profitability can be increased by differentiating yourself. And maybe that's allure enough to at least experiment, because you have so much funds. You can experiment with marketing and see if it works.
Sure.
See if it works for you.
Are there any specific suggestions you have for now? Let's talk about companies that want to grow brands within their employees. You're seeing a little bit of that from what we
Yes.
were talking off air.
Absolutely.
Are there any suggestions that you have for companies that want to invest in personal brands for their employees?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God. That is such a non-negotiable. How many times have you received a sales ping from some person in
Only
a
a few hundred times a day. I mean, it's
Exactly. and how many have you actually opened? Like, how do you make sure that your open rates are higher than somebody else's? Like, that to me is such a fundamental question. Like, companies employ hundreds of salespeople to go and reach out to folks, and even calls that we get. But when I go and look at, okay, who's the person who's called me, just seems like a nobody. And if that's that's the impression you're sending to your high value prospects, customers, clients, why would they want to engage with you? So there's twofold. One is the employee branding or executive branding is a huge pillar for success for companies. How these employees talk on their profiles, and it doesn't have to be at the same level as a founder, but it has to be some sort of a hygiene trickle, that it's a live profile. It's somebody who knows what they're talking about, especially if they're customer facing and they're talking to potential clients. Anybody who then comes and researches them should be able to feel some sort of a trust and reliability in engaging and moving forward on that conversation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it also reflects heavily on the company.
yes.
Because now, as a company, you are this large or mid-sized company that has several thousand employees, but is this the quality of employees that I'm expecting? And that it's not true. The truth is, these employees are actually stellar folks. just how they're being perceived, how they're showing up is not.
In line
It's not
with-
helping the company, and there's a huge unifying company branding opportunity here because every employee can have the same banner streaks that have like the company branding.
You guys do that really well, by the way. I must compliment you because I've seen
Yeah,
them.
we've got all our teams on the same banners now.
Yeah.
We just relaunched, so we've been able to get that going.
And some degree of consistency with like profile pictures, and
Pictures,
the
exactly.
quality of the pictures. I mean, it's not hard enough. It's not too hard to just round everybody up and just get a
Get
professional.
a few
Yeah.
good headshots.
Yeah.
Very, very simple things that you can do to just unify the profile. So first of all, clean up all profiles. That's a fundamental thing.
Sure.
And then have a steady trickle of relevant content, even if it's not like hyper personalized to the salesperson, at least as long as it's engaging with your company content or industry content or industry leaders content. It's such a powerful tool when I know that somebody has liked my profile or liked some of the content I've made, and then they're engaging with me meaningfully. It's a different my bias towards clicking that person's profile and saying, yeah, okay, let's have a 15-minute chat is
Yeah.
way more likely than somebody who's just cold outreaching me with nothing to ground them in as a reliable person I want to talk to.
Right.
So that to me is a huge deal on employee branding. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
No, but I think so. So what you're really saying is, if your company is smart enough to do it, by all means, follow that lead,
Yeah.
right? But if they're not, then look, you are still responsible for your career as an individual.
Yeah.
And at that level, you ought to
Do what you gotta do.
take the first steps
Yeah.
in terms of building a personal brand. So it works both ways. So there's a personal element to it, but there's also a company view personal element to it. Is I guess what I'm hearing, right?
Yes, actually, and we have some inquiries that come in. It's like, I have 60 sales personnel sitting all over America. I need them to have a little bit stronger personal brand, and so companies are actively thinking about it. Cisco recently did not recently anymore. It's probably been like 6 months, but they did an entire overhaul of all of
Yes.
their employees' LinkedIn profiles, and they cleaned it up. I don't know where that impetus came from.
Yeah.
But today, if you look at any Cisco employee, the banners are the same, the headshots are the same, the titles are written in exactly the same way across the board, and they all talk about their passion for the company and the industry and the work that they're in. And that cleanup has hopefully helped Cisco deliver some results. No internal data,
Yeah.
pure assumptions, but yeah.
No, but there is, to your point, there's beauty in harmony, and that's what I mean. Even if there's no incremental revenue coming from that, it's a publicly traded company. The perceived value of the company goes up. Shareholder appreciation of value goes up.
Absolutely.
And if you're a public company watching this, this is something you should seriously look at in terms of aligning budgets for the next possible cycle. So I think that's a relevant point about companies should invest in personal branding for their employees. And employees should sort of, if they don't not working for such a company, then they should invest in their own personal brand to whatever extent
They can.
that they can.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you're looking for a promotion or your next job, somewhere personal brand comes into play. And I'm not saying the LinkedIn profile itself, but the personal brand. Like I read somewhere that you're no longer a product, you're a platform. And you're a platform of things that you care about, all of it combined into one big idea. So the idea is not to productize yourself. The idea is to build that sort of credibility and community that automatically propels your career forward.
Interesting. You're not a product, you're a platform.
I don't know. I need to dive deeper into that. But,
No, but that's an interesting way of looking at it. It's not just, you might have some degree of repeatability from one job to another. You might have some sort of skill sets that you've picked up, but at the end of the day, what stays with you is who you really are, right? And I think that's what you got to do a better job of just putting it out there in the world. This is who I really am, and that's
Yeah.
what personal branding is about.
yeah.
let's change gears a little bit, and I really want to pick, because I think I also see you as somebody who does use AI really well. I think you are probably one of the better prompt engineers, if I can use the terms use that term,
Sure.
that I've come across alongside Michael. So let's talk about Gen AI as it relates to personal branding, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What are your experiences? Any tools that you want to give a shout out to? Anything in particular that you want to mention as it pertains to Gen AI in personal branding? Can I go all the way to the end of like a ChatGPT draft my public image? I mean, what else should I be thinking about?
Absolutely. So, I mean, ChatGPT is a tool that I've used quite consistently. I have an Isha AI. I have an agent that basically has consumed all the content I've ever created, and it now knows my tone of voice, and I can use it to just like do something as simple as draft an email in my tone, and I'll just give it three big pointers I want to talk about, or it can write entire posts for me.
That's amazing.
I still feel like I need to handhold it a little,
Yeah.
but it's got to a pretty decent point. I did one exercise one day with one of my clients where they said, "You write a blog, and I'll have AI write a blog, and let's see who writes better." I won by a very narrow margin.
But how do you measure better?
I don't know. He basically said yours was better by a very narrow margin. But the point is, it's getting close enough where it mimics your voice well enough. It knows you. And I actually have this onboarding exercise that I talked about. It then feeds into this huge chart that I built for most of my clients. If I feed that chart, and I have a chart for me, I fed that into ChatGPT. It kind of knows my motivations inside out too. So it actually knows some of my stories, the transcript of who I have been, so to speak. And that's amazing. Like what that can deliver is phenomenal.
But sorry to interrupt, but you have the benefit of having put out a sizable number of articles out there in the world before ChatGPT even became famous. I think if you analyze that from the perspective of somebody who doesn't put out as many content pieces or articles or whatever, ChatGPT might not have enough data to work with to say this is who person X really is and this is how she talks. I mean, it's not something that is available to everybody. So in that sense. And by the way, if you're just starting out today, you don't want to use ChatGPT's language because then you're going to sound like every other guy
Very
or
cookie
girl.
cutter.
It's going to
Yeah.
sound very cookie cutter,
Yeah.
right? So you still want to have that differentiation and still want to have that voice that you want to maintain, but at the same time, leverage as much automation as possible.
Yeah, I would say there's a few different ways to do this. One is just, I've done this myself sometimes. I'll just record stream of consciousness. Because like I'm thinking about something that's super nice, but I don't have the time to actually capture it in any reasonable form. So I have just like a voice note that I'm just recording. Is like, oh, I'm thinking about all these things, and this
And
is
then
how
what do
I
you do? Do you transcribe it?
Then I transcribe it.
Okay.
In like there are different ways to do it. You can do it on Descript is one.
Yep. I've used
Tool that
Descript.
I've used. Sometimes I'll just put a fake meeting on and let Fireflies transcribe it
Sure.
for me.
Yeah,
Right now,
I've
there
done
are
that.
not enough tools that are doing this great. So I guess that's another tech opportunity. But I do it on Descript or Fireflies or something, and the transcript that goes into feeding into like now build a post on this stream of consciousness that I've heard. So all the ideas are still authentic and true to me. But there's no harm in leveraging technology where it can and where it can help. And if you don't have the time, that's an absolutely phenomenal tool. But you are right. It needs to be fed enough relevant content. And sometimes it takes time to build that repository of content. But I think there must be, and I've not experimented, so I don't know what that is, but there must be a critical mass beyond which it doesn't necessarily need more data from you. So what I mean to say is like, is it 3 videos and 4 articles if I write, is that enough for it to figure out who I am? Or I
Well,
just don't know.
I don't think
know.
you could draw a line somewhere and say this is enough or this is not enough. But I think so something just
No,
to
it's
draw from
critical
your
mass, right? Like there's a
Well, yeah,
parabola.
critical mass.
It'll flatten out at some point. The incremental value will stop.
I
That's
don't
the
know
nerd
what
in
that
me.
is, but no, I get what you're saying, right? Is that you need a certain critical mass of content pieces. But I was also thinking, like, all of us at this stage, I mean, unless you've been living under some rock, right? All of us go on meetings. Many times those are recorded.
Yeah.
So just pull out your last 50 meetings if you can that have been
That's a
recorded,
great idea.
and just use that to guide what your voice should be.
Non-confidential. Yeah.
Non-confidential, obviously. We don't do anything that's not legally, morally, ethically right.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously we're not advocating that, but I think it's not a bad, and especially if you're doing it for personal development, if you're doing it to sort of develop yourself and find out what is your voice, who are you, what is your brand, how do you speak. Many people, if you ask them, you stop them on the road and ask them, what's your voice like? They won't be able to tell you because they're them, right? You have to look at things from a third person perspective, and not everybody has the ability to do that.
Right. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I was saying is so.
So the other thing that I think also helps is this. When I say the questionnaire I've built is very robust, it is very robust. If you
plug.
actually answer,
Nice plug for the questionnaire. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not put it out there, so if people are trying to access, I don't know. By the time this airs, hopefully I'll put it out there. But it is robust enough to actually like really parse through like the triggers, the things that make you you. It does ask all those questions. Like I'm not every time I talk to a new person going ad hoc asking random questions. Obviously, there's builds that we cannot do when we have a physical format, like a physical PDF questionnaire. But it is robust enough to actually build the fundamental pillars of the brand that you will be in. And hopefully it helps. The way you answer those questions also helps train the AI agents.
No, you know what? I mean, jokes aside, absolutely. One of the best gifts I've received recently is this journal. And it's not the journal, it's not the quality of the paper, it's not the book. It's the question, it's prompting you. So we talk about prompt engineering, but sometimes we ourselves need to be prompted in a way. So the question that journal prompts me with, it's just, they're so thoughtful. And it makes me think, It's a bit like somebody mentioned to me at some stage that the Y Combinator application is a fantastic one, because the kind of questions that they ask you are just gonna prompt you to think about your business in a very, very fundamentally first principles way, and it gives you a fantastic starting point.
I've answered that. I've done that too.
Done as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you've got a questionnaire, I don't think, the plug thing was a joke, but I think everybody deserves, whether or not they were ever going to work with you,
yeah,
I think you would do the world a service by putting it out there for people to just kind of think about.
Know who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. The other thing on personal branding, the other tool you can use is obviously for people who don't like being in front of the camera. HeyGen has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've actually not put any of my HeyGen content out there. I've used it.
Yeah.
As
a starting point?
No, I've just used it for fun.
Okay.
But it's a great platform for people. I like putting myself out there. So I prefer it when I'm talking and I have all the ums and ahs, and I like it.
Sure.
But HeyGen does a really good job of
Very polished.
Putting out a very polished version of you and still using the words that are authentically and truly yours. So all of these are cool tools. Descript obviously is a phenomenal platform for transcripts or removing the filler words and such for your videos if you have video content that you're putting out there.
I've seen Descript can actually, and maybe this is some experimental bit that I was looking into, but they can actually replicate your voice, like your audio voice.
Oh, really?
And you could start typing in text and it could create the audio format for it. So it's something for somebody to check out. And I thought that they could do that, but maybe I'm thinking of something
I've used
else.
the basic features so far, which is I put up a video and add captions and remove filler words and such.
Yeah,
but
which is still a lot of value add.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it has. First of all, Descript has so many tiers, so I'm sure somewhere they have like some more features. But these are two platforms. So Descript, HeyGen, and ChatGPT. Between the three of them, somehow you can actually build a fairly self-sustaining system. And if you don't want to do it yourself, use us.
Nice. Is there a threshold? Do you want to? I don't know if you want to talk price points. I don't know if you want to talk about minimum qualifying criteria for somebody to approach. I mean, I know a lot of times, a lot of friends want to do it, but they'll be like, I think these guys are too expensive for me. So how do you want to simplify it for people who perhaps have a little bit of a bias towards getting started, what's the minimum qualifying criteria for somebody to just get started?
I would say if you are thinking about your personal brand, you're already somebody that I think we will want to talk to.
Okay.
So if you're in that space, please definitely reach out and let's at least have an intro call. I would love to leave you with something that, even if you don't want to invest in it with us, invest in yourself in whatever way you can. And I think this is something that's overlooked. I do think it's a growing trend, but investing in yourself is something that people tend to not do. They will spend way more money on food and drinks and travel, but when it comes to spending a fraction of that cost on self-development, it seems like, oh God, why would I waste this money? No, you're wasting money in many other ways.
Yeah.
This is actually a good investment. So that's my fundamental spiel, if you had to say that. But jokes aside, I would say if you're somebody who's reasonably successful, trust me, you'll be able to afford services that we provide. We actually have tiers that cater to different levels of audiences. So depending on where you are in your journey, we can definitely find a way, a solution that fits you. And if not, we can leave you with a playbook that helps you DIY this yourself for a while until you come to a point where you're ready for investing in some other agency's services.
Yeah, you strike me as somebody who's passionate about the topic enough to really not... I mean, you want the problem solved more than you want the problem to be solved by you.
Thank you.
So
I've been told that I care more about the work than the money. So the businessman and the business person in me needs to always be aware of it. But I want this problem solved. I want people to set themselves up for success, and I care about it. So whatever I can do to help, I'll do.
Fantastic. Well, is there anything else you want to mention? Any other points that we perhaps missed? I mean, anything you would like to leave us with?
No, I think we covered it all. I think this is the pod.
All right. Well, I think we couldn't have asked for a better podcast on personal branding. So thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk. And I'm glad that we were able to do it on camera. And
now we've done it in Pilani, Mumbai, and New York. So
yes, we've done.
Gotta cover more cities, Shashank.
Yeah. Right.
Let's do this.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for all the thoughts, and I'm sure we'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely.